everybody. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, so I just want to talk about the Hatton reading, and that was the optional reading entitled Gender and the Sinking Floor in the U.S. Labor Market. So really, it's talking about how it's not just women who suffer from the current labor market and its issues, but that men do as well. They're talking about the sinking floor being that idea that because of the really things that we really talked about how the labor market was changing in our previous lectures were really talking about how that floor is really coming out from under our employees, and really talking about how that change to gig work and change to temp work is really impacting the success you can have within the economic market. So I want to ask a couple questions and pose a couple questions to you all as you're thinking through this reading. It's super short and to the point. Who else might we see as temp workers other than women? So are we going to see our persons of color? Are we going to see our other marginalized groups within these jobs, mostly because those are the things that are available? We're also going to talk about economic status. You also need to talk about geographic region and what is actually available as job options. We're also going to talk about who else might be sinking, and these might be similar parallel groups, right? For multitudes of reasons. We talk about Appalachia, and we can talk about how these groups are going to experience some of that sinking floor things in very particular ways, with the lack of really range of possibilities, of job possibilities. And then we say who might else benefit from the social programs below. So really, this article discussed some social programs, which we're going to talk about a little bit briefly next, and how they might impact positively this, like raising up this floor again, and also allowing workers the capacity to engage within the market they operate in. So we're going to talk about change options as raising the minimum wage, which again has been politicized in very unrealistic ways, but really just talking about how that stagnation of minimum wage for such a long duration of time has not decreased inflation in the ways that we really want it to. And so really talking about that as an option to rise that middle class back up, rise that working class back to a livable wage is really something that needs to be a consistent conversation in any economy that wants or needs to see employees stay afloat, right? So childcare options for working parents, right? So we have a childcare system in this country that operates wholeheartedly on the dime of the parents, and it's incredibly pricey. For all the parents out there that are watching this, though, they can tell you, but I also worked in early childhood education too, and I'm going to tell you that it is easily, especially for 2 and under, any child under 2 that's not potty trained, or that's not potty trained, you're looking at easily $800 to upwards of $1,500 a month just for one child in daycare. And that again will depend on your area and the kind of daycare you're operating or sending them to. That's not accessible when you have a $7 an hour wage. If you're paying your kid more for your kid to go into that daycare to go to work than you are making, then that's not an accessible form that will allow, I guess, our employees to be in those positions. Extending unemployment. So extending unemployment to not just be those looking, but those that are actively in areas that do not have the economic or job options, and or extending unemployment in a multitudes of ways. So if we're not going to look at safety nets for mothers at work, or we're not going to look at that mandatory maternity leave, then we really need to talk about how working moms, and especially moms that are just given birth, and parents that are adopting or what have you, may need to be included within unemployment options. And so really just kind of thinking through how it is that we are what our expectations are of our workers, and what our expectations are that they be allowed to have a life outside of work. So really thinking through kind of some of those things and those social nets and so social safety nets. And again, increasing social safety nets for those in poverty. And this is not to say that they, despite the talking point, there is a consistent backing in social science research that these social nets do not increase dependency on them. They do not increase a desire to not go back to work. They do not increase a lack of motivation for jobs and better wages, right? Because these safety nets don't get you out of poverty. They keep you from literally fading out of existence, right? They keep you from being homeless. They keep you from being, and they don't even always, but their intent is to keep you at the bare minimum of survival, which is not necessarily any place to create motivation, because you're just trying to figure out how to, at that point, do what you need to do to survive. And they also don't take into account some of the reasons why an individual might need those safety nets, right? So if an individual is experiencing an extreme disability, then those lovely minimum wage jobs are probably not geared for individuals that may need wheelchair access, or they may not be geared towards individuals who have a mental disability, or they may not be geared towards neurodivergent individuals, right? So like we have this ideology that being on any kind of social net or social security social system is going to create laziness, when we have a system that is ineffective for a large portion of our workers. So we really need to have larger, more systemic conversations about how to create a system that better serves all of us. I mean, again, so our tests are very similar to those in previous. You're going to do all your readings and lectures and that things, do your discussion post as normal, and do your quiz as normal. The only thing that's different is submitting your APA reference list. And again, I will redirect you if you need information on that particular assignment to the projects module, and that will get you taken care of with instructions, and the syllabus has them as well. So I'm going to get off here, and I hope that you guys have an amazing couple of weeks, and I will be back for module 6.